Hello, and thanks for joining us for the Art of DIY, the self-publishing panel, where Anna, Kristen, Rodney, and Wendy will be sharing their insights on what it takes to publish your book yourself. I'm Zoe, the moderator for this panel. Now, before we get started, I'd like to remind our viewers that if you'd like a chance to win a prize pack of Wattpad coins, good for unlocking paid stories, write the phrase, "We thrive together," into the chat window. One entry per person, please. Now, let's hear from Anna and some of the mistakes she's made along her self-publishing journey. Take it away, Anna.
Okay. There were a lot. When you first start self-publishing, you probably may not have any idea what you're doing, and that's totally normal. I know in my case, I completely underestimated the importance of marketing. There are probably, I don't know, at last count, 7-8 million books on Amazon. And if you don't have a way of getting noticed there, you're just going to fall through the cracks. When I kind of tried to prepare, but when I self-published my first book, it was a Wattpad book, and it was The Senator's Son, and I had pre-planned that I was going to publish the next one within 6 weeks, because that's what I'd heard was the sweet spot, and I did that, and I was actually pretty successful. I was excited, and then I just kind of realized I didn't have my next books planned quite as quickly as I should have, and by the time that happened, I'd lost all my momentum. I didn't know how to market well at that time or at all. I kind of relied on my Wattpad readers coming over and hopefully reading my next books, which I realized you can't do. I just took far too long with that follow-up next book and lost all my momentum. I think another huge mistake I made, and this is going to maybe be a bit out there and not everyone thinks this is a mistake, but I didn't use a pen name. I used a name that, it's not my legal name, but it's a name I go by. So everyone could pretty much find me anywhere on social media, and that's what happened. So I would get odd messages from people, don't know them, so they would, message me. I'd had people at work saying, "Oh, congratulations." I'm like, "On what?" And, "Oh, my book." Okay, thank you. So there was that mistake I think I made. My last mistake I think I made was I read the reviews. And I have now vowed I don't read reviews. I don't read comments. I am not going to read any of those. Those are like sometimes a knife to your heart. Especially when you get that first 1-star review and everybody gets them, and that's okay.
Those are so painful.
Very painful.
They really are. Wendy, would you like to share some of your mistakes?
So I don't know if I would call any of my mistakes so much as like learning experiences or learning moments. So for me, I self-published a novella a couple of years ago, and that was just an experiment for me to see if I could get all the pieces in place. I didn't really expect it to go anywhere or do anything. I just wanted to see if I could get the system down. And then I did a lot of research. I spent a lot of time on Facebook groups and forums and other places trying to make sure I had all of my pieces together for Saving Us when I launched that. And I felt actually pretty good about that. The one thing I would agree with Anna, though, is that you really need to plan to have some sort of follow-up. Like releasing a single title and not having anything come after it really, for self-publishing, momentum is important, particularly in the romance genre. So I think that for me was one of the things. And I knew when I put out Saving Us that I would have a little bit of a delay to get more books out. And in 2022, I'm aiming to release 4 books at a consistent interval. I've got them edited, I have covers and all of that stuff. So I'm ready to go. I just have to get all the other marketing pieces in line to make sure that I can build on that momentum as we go through. So
gotta keep on that momentum.
Yeah.
Rodney, how about you share with us some of your boo-boos?
Well, I'm not going to call it an opportunity to learn or anything. It was definitely a mistake because I was a victim of my own hubris. So I Might Be a Vampire had gotten over like 500,000 reads on Wattpad at the time, and I was there feeling, yeah, this is awesome. I'm going to take this down. I'm going to put it on Amazon, and it's going to be so great. And I took it wholesale. there was create space tool, and I just threw it up into the tool without doing any research whatsoever. Threw it out on Amazon, and available in Create Space, and then proceeded to watch it bomb because it hadn't been edited. There was so there were all the spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes. The formatting was terrible. My font that I used it was Arial font, which is something you should never ever use. I know some ebooks reformat for Arial or the other fonts, but for a paperback, you have to have the right font or it's going to feel so wrong. Anyway, my formatting was all over the place. The only good thing really was the cover, because I had designed that and I at least knew cover design. But you have to take care with your interior so much, and especially the story. Don't get so proud of yourself that you've made this major accomplishment and then just chuck it on Amazon and say that everyone will come. They will come and they will tear you apart.
At least it looked nice on the outside.
Yeah, I still have a copy of that one on my shelf just to remind me. Take my time.
Kristen, how about you share your learning experiences?
Mine was a little bit different because I initially had signed one of the first books I ever finished with a small press. And then about a month after its release, the press folded. I had lost all my pre-sales and everything. And so I was in a panic and I was trying to recoup the money. And so I lost the book up on Amazon thinking that I could salvage it. And that was a bad experience. I made a lot of the same mistakes, not really knowing marketing or if I had any brand to go by, and no idea how to attract an audience or what even audience I should attract for the genre, because it was a genre mashup. And, that kind of experience burned me for a while and I almost gave up entirely. I ended up, deep diving and doing a lot of research before I tried again a few years later. But that's also kind of the draw of self-publishing, is that you can try again.
Yes. All right. Research, so important. All right. This next question is going to be directed at Wendy. As someone who has published traditionally and also self-published, can you tell us the benefits of self-publishing as compared to the traditional way?
So the biggest benefit is control, 100%. So you get to pick your cover designer and the cover that you want. You get to figure out what editor you want to work with. You get to figure out what changes you want to make to the book during the editing process. And then the other really big plus is on the marketing side. Like, yes, you're in charge of all the marketing, but the other side of that is that you can also see the back end. So when you do a marketing push or when you run a Facebook ad or an Amazon ad, you can see immediately whether or not you've gotten any benefit out of that, and you can retwig it or rejig it from there. But when you're with a publisher and you try to run those things, sometimes it feels like you're just throwing your money down the drain because you don't know whether or not you're actually getting the benefit of those things in terms of sales. Anyways, you're always getting exposure, but whether or not you're getting sales is often the important part.
Sales is key. That's right. And Rodney, what would you say are some of the benefits of doing it yourself?
Not, I guess, trying to use your own judgment and not have someone second guess you, or rather just dictate how things are going to go. I've had some bad experiences where with covers, for instance, where people don't really want to use the correct cover, and they
want to assert themselves over your decisions.
Yes, and it's not exactly the best look for the project. So you have control over the covers. One of the biggest ones that I'm seeing recently, right now, I'm going through Ingram Spark, and I can actually see my day-to-day sales on dashboard. So that's a really nice thing to have control over. And it's the same thing with Apple Books. You can see exactly where everything's going. So when to follow certain trends. If it's selling well, keep on doing your marketing and keep having change. But you have the ability to now pivot. If the sales are changing, they're going down, then maybe you're not attracting the right audience. Maybe you need to change course. And being a small an independent publisher, you actually have the ability to do that, especially if you have control of your marketing as well. Myself, I'm a designer. I actually do formatting in InDesign on a daily basis. So formatting the interiors for books was something that I had to go learn, but now that was just an additional step. And being an independent and being in control of every single one of those steps, with the experience behind it, is kind of key.
Oh yes, being able to pivot and just be agile is key when you know you need to change direction. And Kristen, share with us what you think some of the benefits are for doing it yourself.
I do appreciate the aspects of control, the fact that you can kind of have a firm input over every piece of the process. It can be daunting sometimes because you are responsible for every piece of the process, but having that quality control, you can really make sure that you put out a good product, and you really feel the efforts of every part of the marketing and work that you put into it. So, it's a very rewarding experience.
It can be, yes. And Anna, uh, let's hear from you.
A lot of the same points. One thing I did learn from my traditional experience was how it worked over there, and the importance of certain aspects of publishing, about the editing process, the cover, the interior, like Rodney said. You have to have a really nice product. And seeing how their wheels move so slowly or quickly, depending in whatever case it is. Mine was quite fast. But knowing how it works and then saying, okay, now I'm going to apply all the things I didn't like and change it for what I'm doing. So I found that as a valuable tool from my traditional experience. Excuse me.
No worries. All right. We're going to the next question. And Rodney, you mentioned you use InDesign. What are some other resources and tools that you use for self-publishing? And maybe some of the costs if you know them.
Well, InDesign is from Adobe, and it comes with the Adobe suite. So there's a cost involved there. I can't tell you exactly how much it is for InDesign by itself. Probably something like $17 per month. But that's only useful if you're actually using it on a consistent basis. I've dabbled with Vellum, and I've also had to use the Kindle book designer. They have their own app to make you get the right format for their books. Let's see what else I use. Well, I use Photoshop, of course, but you can also use Canva, which is good for certain things. They actually have one of the best, just a side tangent, best background removal tools on the market right now, even better than Adobe. So I really appreciate that. But other tools, I'm going to pass it off to somebody else right now, because those are.
All right, Kristen, why don't you go next?
Two of the big tools that I definitely utilize in my day-to-day self-publishing journey would be probably Story Origin, which is a app for authors and reviewers / readers. You can put up your books to review. You can use it to get newsletter signups and build your newsletter. You can use it for audiobook reviews and giveaways. Like, it's a very great multi-purpose tool. And I also, I would say Story Origin does come with a yearly subscription, but it's around $80, which seems a little pricey, but for the amount I use, it was definitely worth it when you break it down. And then Calibre or Calibre, which I use for formatting ebooks, especially like reader magnets and stuff, and like free stories. That one's free, so you can just like grab it offline and use it at your leisure. And I'll hand it off to somebody else now.
All right, Anna, what are some of the tools you use?
Excuse me, I have a wrong. Okay. For one important thing, for images, I use Deposit Photos. because every year, maybe even twice a year, AppSumo does their Black Friday deal, which is coming up. So it is about, I think it's 100 images for $40, and they never expire. So it's a great resource for images, because you never want to take an image off the internet and put it on your ebook, because you need to know where the image is from and you should license it. Secondly, if you're looking for some free resources, I've used Readsy once as a formatter, and it actually looked okay. They have a back-end kind of Scrivener word processing thing, or you can import your Word document and they will design it. You've got some options. I mean, the drawback, it's free, but Readsy kind of takes some credit in your book. So that's one drawback. Readsy.com is also a good resource for finding an editor if you're looking for one. They stand by the editor-writer relationship. So if something isn't going well, you can get a refund, but you can kind of see what you're going to deal with in terms of an editor, and you can send out quotes, etc., and get prices and go from there. Another resource I use, because I think I'm one of a few on this panel who is Canadian, and sometimes you can't get into places like Barnes and Noble to sell your ebooks. So I use Draft to Digital as an aggregator. I put in all my tax information. I design the ebook from their site. I plug in my cover. They format it all for me. And then I'm able to send it out to any retailer I can't go direct with. The drawback is they take 10% of your sales, but I mean, at least it opens a door for me able to go on to the libraries in the US and some other European places that sometimes you just don't want to fill out those tax forms because they're confusing. I think that was it. One more. It's essential to have a mailing list. I really like mailerlite.com. They have, I believe, the first 1,000 subscribers for free, and after that you have to pay. It's a subscription, but their interface is great and easy to use, and it integrates great with BookFunnel. I won't talk about BookFunnel because I think Wendy wants to. So it integrates with BookFunnel, which is a segue.
And on that note, Wendy, take it away.
So one of my favorite resources is BookFunnel. You can get subscribers to your newsletter either through offering an excerpt of your current book, or you can also offer a reader magnet. So the novella that I have out is often used as a reader magnet. I also have bonus chapters that I distribute through BookFunnel. And then I have done excerpts of my novel when I join like a newsletter giveaway group. And then once you're in that group, all the people that are in that newsletter group all distribute the excerpt to their newsletter, and you distribute it to yours. And then it helps you pick up subscribers. Those subscribers vary in terms of quality, but I do have quite a few that, in terms of the rating, when I look on MailChimp, are opening my stuff, they're clicking on my things. So I certainly think it's a useful thing to do in order to get newsletter subscribers. So, and I think the newsletter is important because it's a ready-made audience. Those are people who have a lot of my subscribers on my newsletter are people who have signed up to get bonus chapters from one of my novels. So they've already read something from me, they've already enjoyed it. And so you're just catching that audience that's already warm. They're already a warm audience for you. And so it makes it easier to get them to buy into other things that you're selling or trying to promote.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, we've got a viewer question here. How much money should you invest in a book, like for editing or for promo? Like if you're using a third party, how much should they spend? Or maybe how much should they not spend? Like how much is too much and how much is too little?
The thing is, it's an investment. So you can't go cheap. At least set a budget for yourself that's within your means, and that you can actually reach. If there's really no set cost to this, because you have the big publishers who can take the money hose and just throw as much money as possible on it. And then there are some people who are a little bit more moderately well off. You should be looking to spending at least about I'm saying a minimum of $1,000 to get it all prepped and then out into the world. Minimum. If you're going for your cover design and everything, if you are a designer, you already have a few things out of the way. But if you're starting from scratch and you're not a designer, you don't do the interiors and a lot of the other essential stuff, all that you do is right, then you're going to end up spending a lot more like say around $5,000 on average. Maybe I'm a little bit more there, but it costs, and everything does have a price.
And also, if you don't want to skimp on the cover either, because people do judge books by their covers. And so if you're not great at cover design, then yeah, it's really worth the money to get a good one.
Yeah, I actually hired a photographer and a model to get the cover for my book so that I could get the exact thing that I wanted. And that was something that I planned over a course of several months, just so that I knew that I will be able to get this in.
And you need to make sure that your cover designer actually works within your genre too. I think that's really important. So there can be cover designers that create beautiful, beautiful covers, but if they're not right for your genre, you're not going to get clicks. So that's the other thing that I think you really need to be conscious of when you're looking at a designer's page is are they creating for my genre? And if they're not, then they're not the right designer for you.
That is a really good tip.
I was going to jump in just to say editing is really important. I mean, if a reader opens a book and in the first few paragraphs, there's already an error. They notice that, and then they notice it every single time, every single page, and that is the first thing they're going to put in their review if they leave one, is the bad editing. And you can go cheap. You can, if you don't have a lot of money, you don't have a lot of resources, ask friends, ask family members, ask people you trust to at least read through it for you. Don't be shy. Editing is so important, and there are editors out there who are not qualified to be doing what they're doing, so do some research. But I think for editing alone, you're probably looking at least $500, depending on what you're doing. I mean, I'm in a position where I am a copy editor, so I cut that out. I mean, I still have a proofreader, and I still have, usually a developmental editor of some kind, but you're looking at least to put aside $500 for editing.
Oh, all right. So yeah, that sounds about right. We've got a question. I don't know. Do any of you use Scrivener? We have a Scrivener question here.
I'm a Scrivener.
Does Scrivener compile work for self-publishing? I guess like formatting for self-publishing.
It has a compile function, but Scrivener is just like Microsoft Word, a word processor. Take it and and actually put it into a tool that is actually made for formatting, like Vellum, for instance.
Was Calibre another one?
I used Calibre a long time ago. I know Vellum is a lot more comfortable for people to work with than say in design.
Vellum only works though on a Mac though. I mean, you can do it in Mac and Cloud, but you need an Apple computer or Mac and Cloud to get Vellum to work.
There's some new software called Atticus.
Yes.
It's Atticus.io, is it?
Yeah, it's Atticus.io. It's been released recently, and it's available at like half the cost of Vellum, and is available for PC users.
Yes.
Okay.
I've heard good things. I haven't used it yet.
I have not used it yet either.
I think we're all going to use it at some point.
Probably. All right, I've got another question here from the audience. Which one part of self-publishing do you think is the most difficult, and why?
Oh my God.
Marketing.
I agree. It's the marketing.
Marketing's hard. I also found finding a good editor a little bit of a challenge. So sometimes someone can edit a sample really well, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to edit your whole book very well. So I struggled a little bit finding like a good, reliable editor at first too. That was also something difficult for me.
Yeah, one of the key things. Sorry, go ahead.
I feel like with the marketing, especially in the beginning, a lot of it is hit or miss strategies because every genre kind of has a different strategy to it. Like the same things that work for horror or fantasy don't necessarily work for romance. And you really kind of like hit or miss in the beginning, and you might end up not necessarily wasting money, but you might have to take a few financial risks with some of the marketing before you really find stuff that works.
Yeah, not everything's going to hit. That's for sure.
Yeah. So which part of, let's see, the question is, which part do you enjoy the least? But I guess that's kind of related to how the difficult parts was the marketing. It's hard because we don't enjoy it. But if you're into marketing, then you would enjoy that.
I just want to write books. I don't want to sell them.
Yeah.
Well, I
It's so true.
say that one of the hardest parts for me, actually on my first book, one of the hardest parts for me was the editing, because I waited to the end of the process. And this is something that a lot of people do, to actually go in and do the edit. And when I got my edit back, it was so much red, and it was a sea of red. And just going through the entire thing, it took forever to make those changes, those little fixes and everything, and it always felt so overwhelming. I think just this last year, I started working with an editor on an ongoing basis, and she gets my work, and we were able to actually edit as we go. But at the end of the process for my book, How Not to Vampire, we had it all edited, and all we had to do was actually go back through and make sure that everything all aligned. But it made the process a lot easier if you were able to go through and have it, not all at once, because I tell you, that is seriously the least enjoyable thing ever.
Yes. All right, we've got a good question here. I think barely have time for it, but when you self-publish, how do you go about picking your editors, book cover artists, etc., especially when you have no prior connections? Like, where would we go to find these people?
Well, I'm just going to follow up on my editor thing. This is related to this. Get an editor who gets your work and really enjoys the work. If your editor does not mesh with you at all,
where would they go though, Rodney, to find these people?
I don't know where. I work with authors. We have a Discord group and everything. So
yeah, I think Wendy might have an answer. I think.
I actually looked so a lot of times in the published books for indie authors, they'll actually list their cover designers, their editors, and so forth in the front of them. So some of my favorite indie writers, I looked there to see who they had hired, and that's where I started. I messaged them, asked if they wanted a sample of my writing. And as I said, results may vary. So something that, as Rodney said, it's a bit like dating. An editor that clicks with someone may not click with someone else. So that can be a challenge sometimes still, even when you think you're getting potentially good people.
Yeah, looking in the back of books, the acknowledgement section of the books that you like. I mean, that's how I discovered Wattpad, actually. It was on the back of Marissa Myers. She just talked about Wattpad. I was like, ooh, what's that? And I discovered Wattpad. All right, looks like we are out of time. So the next panel we have coming up is Thrills and Chills, which is all about the art and craft of writing scary stories. So stay tuned for that. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you at the next panel, I guess. Bye. What is Writers Connect?
It's a community of writers helping other writers.
Most of us are Wattpad stars.
And that's the connecting thread.
Thanks for sponsoring us, Wattpad!
But we are writers first. It's what we do.
We write every single day.
Well, some of us do.
So we've decided to hold our own author convention.
We have panels organized by writers with topics we want to talk about.
Genre panels like romance, new adult, and vampires.
Industry panels like serial fiction, the craft of writing,
how to get an agent and keep one.
And we have author meet and greet sessions all online.
We don't just talk about it, we live it.
We're not a panel of experts selling books about how to do things.
We're writers, just like you, and we have experiences to share.
So connect with us. Maybe you learn a thing or two.
We write together, we thrive together.
Writers Connect, November 5th through 6th.